very outset, good evening to all on this forum. On behalf of Forum for Global Studies, myself, Colonel M.K. Singh, extend a very warm welcome to all our guests joining us from Moscow, Professor Boris Volkhonsky, who is Associate Professor at Lomonosov, Moscow State University, Mr. Vishwas Tripathi, Chairman at BRICS, Chamber of Commerce and Industry, New Delhi, and also our senior journalist friend, Mr. Manish Jha, who is Deputy Editor at the Financial Express, New Delhi. I also extend a very warm welcome to all other participants who have joined us from Brazil, from India, from Poland, and some others are going to join us from Moscow. This discussion today is on relevance of 14th BRICS Summit in bringing normalcy in Indo-China relations. And at the very outset, I would invite Mr. Vishwas Tripathi, our Chairman at BRICS, Chamber of Commerce and Industry, to give his views for about 20 minutes. And thereafter, we will hear out Professor Boris and then the third guest. And we'll have question and answer sessions at the end of the complete session and also after each speaker speaks. So this is the way we are going to go ahead. May I request Tripathi sir to start the session, please.
Thank you very much for inviting me on this platform of Forum for Global Studies to speak on and to join on a very relevant topic of BRICS 14th Summit. And the topic today that has been chosen by Global for GBS, Global Studies, Global Forum for GBS and all, that what is going to be the relation and between India and China in the backdrop of this 14th Global BRICS Summit. Friends, first I would like to thank Mr. Colonel Singh, our founder member, Mr. Dr. Saint Tripathi, our the lady from Financial Express Media, as I have been also being chairman of United News of India for 9 years in the past, and other team members from Moscow and other places. Friends, the topic that has been chosen is that BRICS Summit in the light of normalcy of relations between India and China. Let me first put it across very clearly in the beginning that this BRICS Summit is not between India and China only, it is for the BRICS nations. And in that backdrop, we are discussing about India and China. As you all know that BRICS countries comprise of around 42% of the global population, 26% of the GDP of the global economy. Very true that India and China put together comprise nearly 50% of the population of the whole world. And at present, with new initiative of the BRICS as BRICS Plus, as we have just seen that Iran and Argentina, I think, they have applied for the membership of BRICS nations, BRICS Plus. And there was a meeting in the recent past of BRICS Plus nations. So many people, so many countries were invited to discuss about the relevance of BRICS and how to work together and all these things. It's good that India, Brazil, China, South Africa, and Russia, they all participated. There was a confusion whether India will join or not join, whether some other countries, because in the light of, in the view of the war between Russia and Ukraine, whether everybody will take part in the same or not. But happily and fortunately, everybody joined. What we my view is that India-China relation is a bilateral issue. India, since independence, had a policy of non-alignment. We have never sided with one country or the other country. We have always been looking at we have been non-aligned, neutral, looking into our national interest beforehand. Any support from any country is always welcome, but India has never allowed any third-party intervention in any bilateral issue till date. However, having said that, we must agree and we all must feel happy that in the BRICS forum, 5 nations take up issues of international interest, keeping their national interest separate on those international issues. So, as you have seen, that China was presiding over this BRICS summit, brought out a proposal that global security issue, where everybody aligned together. Like in Afghanistan, the resolution that was passed was that we must maintain sovereignty and other things maintained for Afghanistan, and we should not allow any other country to infiltrate into the territory of Afghanistan. This is something which is, we can say, as our ancient theory of Vasudhaiva Kutungam, that the whole world is one. So we are independent within our own sphere, but so far as other person is concerned, he is also independent in his own sphere. So far as BRICS nations concerning India-China relations is concerned, I always maintain that dialogue and discussion is the best part. There was a confusion that whether India will participate or not, but ultimately India participated, and on one or two, on many resolutions, India supported, and India was a part of all the other BRICS nations along with China. However, we cannot have good relations with tension in the background. So it is good that we are discussing on the global forum about international issues and all these things. And I'm sure that more discussion, more interactions will pave the way for further de-escalation of the tensions between the two countries that we have witnessed in the past. My take is that the more we interact, the more we discuss, the more ice is melted, the more we say that we have this concern, the other party also can say that we have this concern. So the more we interact, the more we meet, the more we see that the global peace is more important, and we should all contribute in that, because India and China and the South Asia is really a very, very, very important region for the world peace. We've already seen with Pakistan, we've already seen in many countries what is happening. So I will say that this BRICS summit, where we have decided to have BRICS plus also, with many countries willing to join together, and now for the first time, it appears that China, Russia, India, put together, they are maintaining their own independence, and as a bloc, BRICS has become very powerful, and we cannot be ignored now. So the world order is changing, political scape is changing, narrative is changing. Let's see what happens in 2-3 years, how BRICS reorients itself, how we all learn to address each other's concerns, maintaining each other's integrity, sovereignty in place. And I'm sure that more interaction, more cooperation, and economics and trade has become such a decisive factor as on day today that the geographical differences sometimes are taken correct course through the economics and trade. So the world is now flat, interdependent. We cannot live in isolation. So we all have to understand, and I hope that BRICS and Russia, being a very important nation in BRICS at present, along with India and China, can informally, voluntarily, can always intervene for the benefit of all. Thank you very much. This is what I wanted to say. I don't know whether I'm politically correct or not, but I am following the principle of Panchatattva, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, and this is what India has always stood for. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vishwas Tripathi, sir. And it was very fascinating to hear you out. Just one small question related to what you just narrated. As you said, we are all interdependent on each other. But this war has also shown us that more than globalization, you also require localization. You have to be independent of your dependence on other countries at times. This war has shown that. What do you have to say on that, sir?
Very correct. Very pertinent question that you have raised. You know, my feeling always is, I believe in that Gandhian philosophy that you have to have self-sufficient villages, self-sufficient towns, self-sufficient cities, and then only you can have self-sufficient country, strong country, nation, right? If we all, and we need to follow this, because now as we have seen, the trend is coming in the world that first we have to take care of our own people, then only we'll go outside. So this trend we are seeing in the last 5-10 years. So I also feel that once a country has to be self-sufficient in most of the affairs in their own country, and that is the way, when we are self-sufficient in our own country, we can always contribute to the world peace, to the world welfare, to the world, I will say, betterment. This is my take.
Thank you, sir. I would like to invite Dr. Amna, and she can moderate this session hereafter. Sorry, we had to start because there were connectivity issues.
Thank you, sir.
We
Thank
already
you so
heard.
much.
Yes, ma'am.
Heard from Mr. Tripathi the important points he made. Now, again, as a business person, as someone who has been, looking out at how today global governance is no longer about state-to-state dialogue. And yes, when we look at that, how countries got together with the 14th BRICS Summit, it was about looking at the wide range of issues. For example, from the Indian side, if we can point out that how, right from looking at consultations together in the MSME to working out together to, think about online database systems, somewhere these deliberations showed us that despite of all the setbacks global governance witnessed with the COVID pandemic, with the, entire events on the world governance, with the Ukraine war, amidst all the crisis, yet there was certain degree of, faith, a certain degree of alignment with the idea of cooperation to get things together. What is interesting again, that at a time, when world is witnessing rise of new forms of power, and I really say as a believer in the idea that technology has lots to offer, India, the Indian side, if you go by the official statement of the Indian Prime Minister at the 14th BRICS Summit, it clearly says that we have to think about that how forums like technology, how technology-based solutions for socio and economic challenges can be worked out through joint deliberative exercise. And I think it's very important that, what even Manoj sir was pointing out, that yes, again, globalization is being debated, it is contested, but at the same time, the very idea of having strong local units and then reach out to global governance is being thought about. And here, using technology as an important tool, as an important medium, was aptly deliberated. Now, with this, with all the important points made by Tripathi sir, let's move forward and let's invite our very distinguished next speaker. I'm told that Boris sir is there with us. Boris sir, Associate Professor at Lomonosov Moscow State University. Sir, greetings from India. Welcome to the wonderful Forum for Global Studies dialogue right now. It's indeed a matter of great privilege for all of us to have you here. And sir, with this, let's hear from you with respect to the Russia, because of course, this year's 14th BRICS Summit is all the more very interesting to watch out, because you have Iran, you have Argentina trying to vouch for new space, trying to bargain for space within the BRICS grouping. Now, seen in this scenario, when of course countries, India has definitely pledged for the need for a much more representative multilateral global system, a global system which is much more reflective of concerns of everyday life. Seen in this scenario, your take on the important perspectives and inputs coming forward from the summit. Sir, once again, welcome and request you for your remarks, please.
Thank you very much. And first of all, I would like to thank the organizers, the Global Forum, Forum for Global Studies, for inviting me and having an opportunity to speak at such a distinguished meeting. As the previous speaker has said, well, the title of our today's conversation, roundtable conversation, is Diffusing India-China Tensions. But as the previous speaker has said, India has never allowed third parties to intervene into bilateral issues. Well, that's why, for me, as representing here Russian views, probably it would be impertinent to, to advise either India or China as to how they should resolve their bilateral issues. But on the other hand, we understand that the globe is becoming smaller and smaller every day. And also, as the previous speaker, we're all interdependent on each other, and we cannot be isolated. So the situations, the bilateral issues between such important countries as China and India cannot but affect other states. Likewise, the war or the military operation that Russia is launching in Ukraine to defend Donbass and Lugansk republics, well, it's not India's war, but it cannot but affect India as well, because the repercussions are global of this war, of this operation, of this situation. So that's why we look forward to really to the situation when BRICS will really become a center of power in today's world order and be an important factor, or maybe one of the two important factors in the global governance. You know, before the BRICS summit in Beijing, I read many comments in Western media saying that probably India would object against including some anti-Western, anti-American, and other whatever anti remarks in the final declaration. But the fact is that, well, no anti-Western remark was actually included in the final declaration. But the fact is that neither Russia nor China, and I'm sure that neither Brazil nor South Asia ever wanted to include such anti-Western remarks into their final declaration. Because when we speak about BRICS as a non-Western alternative for integrational processes, the very word non-Western by no means means that it is anti-Western. It's non-Western. It's not. It is not under any influence from Western powers, be it G7 or United States or European Union. It's an alternative, but it's not it's not targeted against any other party in the world, including United States, which or NATO, which openly declared Russia as its main threat yesterday, and China is the main matter of concern or main challenge, I think. But we are not thinking in the terms of confrontation with anybody. So we are looking forward to bringing a kind of a new system of governance, which would be free, which would be based on equal basis, where every participant will have its say. And in this respect, we also look at the possible enlargement. You mentioned Iran and Argentina, but also there are some such countries that show interest in joining BRICS, like Indonesia, and even, strangely enough, maybe Saudi Arabia. And the members of the new development bank of BRICS are such countries as Egypt, Bangladesh, United Arab Emirates, and Uruguay. Well, so it really means that BRICS is becoming a global format of cooperation. One other thing is that, well, being close politically and ideologically, even with all the differences between individual nation states, I think that the weakness of BRICS format as of now is the lack of multilateral projects. Because when we speak about, for example, trade, it's always bilateral. For example, in recent months, Russia, which has never been a sufficient supplier of oil to India, has become, I think in May, it was took the second place after Iran. And I read just today, I read some reports that in June is going to be the #1 oil supplier to India. And that means that the whole crisis of recent months shows that a crisis is not only a disaster, but also a challenge. It's not only a challenge, but also an opportunity to find new ways of cooperation. Definitely, the bilateral issues that do exist, we cannot close our eyes on them, exist between India and China, are a factor in, but maybe to some extent, maybe impeding the processes within BRICS and around it. But I think that in all these matters, we should always look at some issues that, that do not correspond directly to the political differences, to political problems. For example, the recent establishment or the intention to establish a joint vaccine R&D center is one of the examples, because global pandemics, I'm not speaking only of COVID pandemic, but other diseases, they are old and new ones, is a common threat to everybody. So joint research, irrespective of all political matters, all political contradictions, is something that can bring the participants together. Also, such things as space research, space exploration, or fertilizers. Now that the world is facing some problems in food supplies, and I think that the issue of fertilizers is also a matter of common concern. And I think the blame for world hunger should not be pinned to any particular nation. It's a global threat, and every nation that can participate in solving this and avoiding and averting this threat should take part in the joint projects and joint research, joint cooperation. So I think that this issue of multilateral projects is something that is still on the table, and it should be widened. The efforts to establish such projects that go beyond political differences, political contradictions, something that really should be implemented in the nearest future. As I've said about a few words about enlargement, and this year showed that the BRICS Plus format is really gaining importance, and the BRICS summit was attended by leaders of several other countries, not members of this grouping. I think that it is also a very fruitful idea to look at the BRICS Plus format in the sense that it should not bring only, it should not be limited to first enlargement of the grouping itself by allowing other countries to join it, and not only by to inviting individual nation states to summits. Well, every BRICS member is also a member of other integrational groups and mechanisms. So, for example, Russia, India, and China are members of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Russia is a member also of the Eurasian Economic Union. India is a member of SAARC. South Africa is a member of South African Union, and Brazil is a member of Mercosur. So an idea of conducting joint summits of these organizations. Well, for example, when Russia is president of BRICS, there may be a joint summit of BRICS and Eurasian Union. When India is president, it may be BRICS plus SAARC. Despite the fact that SAARC is a little bit, has slowed its movement lately, but it may also give a new impetus to this organization as well. Also, none of the countries present members of BRICS is a member of ASEAN, but maybe, no one would neglect that ASEAN is playing an important role. So summits like BRICS plus ASEAN, I think it would be also could be a very fruitful idea that would bring together very important international groupings. Also, I think that when we speak about non-Western character of BRICS, it's definitely one of the ways to avoid the current situation when global economy is still dominated by one currency and by the Bretton Woods system. So I think that every member of BRICS actually believes that this monopoly, this dollar monopoly, first of all, it's coming to an end, and second, it should come to an end. In this sense, the crisis like the current one also show that they open new opportunities. For example, Russia and India are intending to conduct their transactions in rupee to ruble. The same applies to China and some other countries, for example, South China and Saudi Arabia. And also the idea of a common currency has been voiced recently. And maybe it's something that all member states should move towards. I think that when we find common causes, common purposes, common targets, the existing contradictions may be overcome in a much more easier way than when we just concentrate on the contradictions themselves. So I think that maybe my talk was not very systematic, but I just tried to pinpoint the issues that seems to me to be most crucial ones. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Some very interesting remarks coming forward from your side as you try to understand the BRICS deliberation. You actually point out this very important lacuna wherein countries really need to think together about lack of multi-cooperation project And yes, the silver lining in the cloud, the very optimistic perspective from your side, namely translating the crisis in the form of the crisis towards an opportunity, using it as a challenge to take things forward. The idea of joint collaboration is indeed a very well idea, because again, when we understand, the formal BRIC statements, there is a pledge that there is a need to work together to strengthen individual capacities of states. And looking at present day global governance scenario, individual capacities can be strengthened only through this approach, namely looking at how to translate the crisis as a challenge to overcome. And then, the important point that we talk about joint collaboration. Again, how the BRICS, says that, it's the statement clearly says that it's been 16 years, and since 16 years, the countries have really come together with the BRICS spirit. And I guess BRICS spirit in the present day global governance, wherein every country is trying to grapple up with new realities, from Industry 4.0 to the need to battle pandemic, post-pandemic world, to disruption as a fact of our everyday lives and livelihood. The focus on economic governance, wherein big BRICS, again, the declaration pledges to work together to work out open economic governance in a very in an inclusive manner. You know, uh, so as you're making the point about joint collaboration, this year, the BRICS summit, it gives a passing reference to traditional medicine. And again, this becomes very interesting to understand traditional medicine, because again, India, China, Russia, they have their own set of alternative medicine, medical systems, and medical aspect really becomes all the more interesting, because we've seen the debates on patents, we have seen the debate on medicines, vaccines, where what you were pointing out about the issues of Western issues. These in this area, I guess India and Russia, they stand on the same platform, pointing out at how the world health infrastructure, from WTO to patents to vaccine, definitely needs a reform. The idea of this comparative analogy, sir, that you point out from SARC, comparing BRICS and SARC, I think it's very important in present day times, because since 16 years, BRICS definitely offers hope. When we look at the Beijing Declaration, somewhere there is a testimony that solidarity and cooperation are here to stay, regardless of the differences in the global power dynamics. The idea that solidarity and cooperation are here to stay. Definitely, BRICS offers a better, deliberative proposal, a better research proposal, a better collaborative idea for everyone, from policymakers to academia to media to researchers in international relations. Now, so your idea that that monopoly should come to an end, I think it's a very, very powerful idea, and a rational idea too. So seriously, some very interesting perspectives coming forward, sir, from your remarks. And with that, let's move on. Do we have Manish Jha, sir? Has he joined us? He told us that he had a meeting. Manish Jha, sir, is Deputy Editor, Foreign Affairs, The Financial Express, New Delhi. Is he here?
Ma'am, can we take some questions?
Yeah,
can we take some more questions?
Sure. So after this, I would request Boris, sir, to be there with us. And let's open the floor for some question and answers.
Ma'am,
Exactly.
Some remarks.
For the time being, let's have a question to Professor Boris. And I think by 10 o'clock, he will be joining. So just 20 minutes after. 20 minutes after. So,
okay, I have
a lots of question to Professor Kashmir.
Yeah, Dr. Sandeep, may I ask one question from Dr. Boris?
Sure.
Sir, both the speakers actually pointed out very, very eruditely that this BRICS is all about the collaboration of these nations. However, India is always averse to anybody's interference in their bilateral relations. But we chose this important subject, especially in the light, because there were no engagements between these two countries, and BRICS summit was one opportunity to get this sorted. So, and also Russia being around and the influence that it wields, especially in the light of this ongoing conflict. So we thought this topic had relevance, and that's how we pitched it that way. That with and one more very powerful thing that you both speakers brought out was, yes, we as nations can bring out um, different organizations to the larger good for this subcontinent and to the world. So, what are your comments on that, sir?
Well, definitely, I agree with you that bringing together countries of different follow different views, different opinions is always a good thing, in order to establish understanding. And if we look at the China-India relations, China-India and Russia relations, I mean within this triangle, historically, during the Cold War period, India was the leader of the non-alignment movement, and this non-alignment movement had a clear anti-imperialist stance. That's why it was brought. India and Russia were brought together, and were my generation, at least in Russia, remembers the phrase "Hindi Rusi bhai bhai." I'm not sure whether the younger generation in India remembers it, and definitely. Unfortunately, the younger generation in Russia doesn't know this phrase exactly, what it means. We also had a very tense relationship with China, balancing on the brink of an open war. There were some clashes, and approximately at the same time of this, when India and China had the war, maybe a little bit later. In mid-60s. We were balancing on a brink of an open war. Now it has changed, and I have felt from I've sensed from my communication with Indian experts, journalists, and political scientists that during 90s, India sort of felt it was a little bit isolated globally. When Russia first turned to the West, opened its arms to the West and tried to embrace the West as warmly as possible, then Russia changed its policies towards China, and there was a very great, I wouldn't call it a friendship, but a great cooperation between Russia and China, and India felt it was left alone, and it had to look for other balances, That's why today's India is it's not only participating in non-Western formats, it's also a member of Quad, and there are no ill feelings in Russia that Quad has a clearly anti-Chinese anti-Chinese stance. And the three other members of Quad were trying very hard to convince India to condemn Russia in regard to this situation with Ukraine. But India sort of didn't do it. India has taken a neutral position, which is probably the best we can hope for in Russia now. So I think that such things that, like differences between two countries should be resolved peacefully, and BRICS is a good format for it, because as I mentioned in my speech, before the BRICS, there were lots of speculations in Western media that India may take another stance, and even some observers figured out that India would not even participate in the BRICS format. India did. And so I think it was one of the positive signs that this format is not just a conception of some minds in Goldman Sachs, but it's really working, and it's really bringing countries together. And for resolving the differences, for diffusing the tensions. I think that joint cooperation on the issues that where we can cooperate is one of the working instruments. I also, maybe it's not related directly to BRICS, but I have visited, I think twice, the ceremony at Wagah border between India and Pakistan, which is an example that, well, we can have a very nice and colorful performance, even within noting that there are differences between the two countries. Again, I'm not in a position to advise India or Pakistan as to how to resolve the bilateral issues, but definitely the tension between India and Pakistan is a matter of concern for everybody. And the sooner we start, the two countries find a way out, it will be better for everybody, not only for the neighbors, but globally for Eurasia, at least for Eurasia, and generally for the world as well. If that's an answer to your question.
Yes, that was good enough. And I just have one more small piece of diverting you a little bit from this subject. There are main three reasons for all this, what is happening around the world. I'm trying to say that we are convinced, at least I am convinced, it's all brought in by the Western and US lobbies. The three things which have, caused all the problems in the past so many years, including what is happening in Russia today or Ukraine today, is expansionism of European Union, expansionism of NATO, and third is fostering Orange Revolution wherever they want. And this has been recognized not only by Eastern or leftist kind of thinkers, but also many Westerners have pointed out that US is to be blamed for most of the crisis that is created all over the world. What is your take on that, and also relevance of UN in the present scenario?
Well, definitely we could organize another separate forum for discussing these issues, because it's not a small question, it's not a little question. First of all, I would like to say that expansion of European Union is not a matter of concern. It's until it keeps within the the economic and human rights and humanitarian aspects, because European Union has no military force, and the expansion of the European Union is not a matter that in any way affects Russia. As for NATO, I think that you have put it very clearly. The expansion of NATO poses a direct danger to Russia. And but on the other way, as recently Finland and Sweden have not yet joined it officially, but have been invited to join NATO. So it also poses a danger for them as well, because while they were neutral countries, they could not expect any threat coming from outside. In this case, from Russia. Now that they are part of a military organization, military installment, Russia will have to take precautious steps in response. But generally speaking, both enlargement of NATO and Orange revolutions and whatever activities you see around the globe are not isolated issues. It's a symptom of the global crisis of Western-based global governance. Definitely, in terms of PPP, China is economy #1 now. GDP calculated in purchasing power parity, maybe not in pure dollars, but it's still second economy. But in purchasing power parity is the first economy, and the share in global economy of the leading Western countries have dropped very considerably within the recent 2 or 3 decades. And that means that the West is losing its monopoly. No monopolist would be happy when it or he or she or they lose their monopoly. So these actions are aimed at stopping and maybe reverting these processes. But I think that the attempts are futile. I'm very optimistic. I hope nuclear war will not happen. I'm optimistic enough for that. But if it doesn't happen, the process will go on naturally with new centers of power emerging, be it China, India, or the whole BRICS countries. And since Brazil and South Africa are not just isolated members of BRICS, but they are gateways to a larger continents. So it will mean that the non-Western world will be brought together, and it will really constitute a center of power, not opposing, but alternative to the West.
How about that relevance of UN, sir?
UN.
Yes, the United Nations.
United Nations, the relevance of United Nations. Definitely, as it was pointed out in final declaration, we support the reforms of the United Nations, but we also see very clearly what kinds of underwater stones there may be on this way. So if we, for example, India and Brazil are included in the Security Council, which we do support, yeah, but then, well, maybe such countries as Germany and Japan and, well, maybe some other will also try to do the same. And you can understand clearly that China will never allow Japan to join Security Council with a veto power. So there are some complications. UN is still playing some role, but in many respects, it's becoming, as was shown at the recent Security Council meeting, you know, it's becoming a stage for propaganda. When President of Ukraine participated online, which is a violation of their own procedures, well, that got a very clear response from the Russian representative there. So I think that UN is still playing, it's the only global body that is playing a decisive role in global affairs. But unfortunately, there are some forces that do not really take it into consideration, try to use it as its own or their own instrument.
Sir, we are really honored to get so much of time from such illustrious professor and learned scholar, and grateful, sir. And I know a little bit of Russian. Очень хорошо, sir. До свидания.
Thank you very much. बहुत शुक्रिया, बहुत धन्यवाद.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. It was great interacting with you, sir. We'll invite you more often. And now that you're a friend of FGS, we can expect you to join us for even larger issues that we are going to organize in future.
Sure.
Sir. Dr. Sandeep, Dr. Amna, please.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we were. Thank you, so Manoj, sir. Very interesting remarks and very interesting conversation with Boris, sir, with respect to important issues, especially the question with respect to relevance of UN, because everyone from classroom, from our university lectures to the articles that we write, the research papers we do, and of course the bigger global forums also, this is a very important question. So thank you so much, Manoj sir, Boris sir, for that very interesting conversation that added more to the debate. Now I'm told that Manish Jha sir, Deputy Editor, Foreign Affairs, the Financial Express, New Delhi, has joined us.
Sorry to intervene you. Actually, so far he is not able to join us. So I would request from my Brazilian friend, those who are here, especially Professor Castrogen and his students,
on that from the Brazilian perspective.
Thank you very much, Dr. Amna. And to all my dear friends from FGS, I respectfully say that it is almost like a family, because we keep on meeting Dr. Manoj Singh, Dr. Siman Bharti, my dear friend Sandeep. We are always looking at different possibilities of expanding BRICS countries. And I think that this was one of the hot topics for the summit, the possibility of expanding BRICS, and of course, a very welcome signs are very clear that India and China are amending some contentious points and are becoming closer together. I believe that BRICS countries are the future of a possible different global order. And as Dr. Amna well pointed, we are references in medical. We have been challenged over the 2 recent years with the COVID pandemic. And if we take a closer look, Brazil is developing at least 3 or 4 new vaccines for COVID. India also has developed many vaccines and has the large pharmacy of the world. China has developed 3 or 4 reference vaccines. Russia has also developed vaccines for COVID. Sputnik, if I'm not mistaken, was the first registered vaccine for COVID in the world. And South Africa has always pointed out the possibility of developing a BRICS Center for Vaccines. This is an open question that maybe will be developed further. So I really think that people should pay attention to BRICS. And the question I asked my dear friend, Professor Boris, is how can we reconcile the expansion of BRICS countries with the consensus approach for every decision making in BRICS countries? Since we have to make a consensus approach, we are getting so many different views now. It's already difficult with 5 countries. Now we are going to have many more countries. How can we deal with that?
Well, that's a very good question that I would like to ask all other participants, actually, because I don't know a clear answer to that. Because, of course, you're right that the more members there are, the more differences there will be. So if we include such countries as Iran, and for example, Saudi Arabia is also on the agenda, well, the 2 countries have so many differences and so many contradictions, so they may not be brought together. So maybe, well, it's a wild idea. Well, first of all, how would the grouping be called if it's enlarged? Yeah, now it's called BRICS because there are 5 members, BRICS, yes? Should we enlarge the naming, or should we stick to this trademark of BRICS? However many more countries may join it. I think that the best idea would be stay at the 5 letters, BRICS, and not enlarge, not include Argentina, Iran, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, whatever, everything. Yeah. So let it be just, or maybe we could include Kenya or Korea, and it will become BRICS, you know, like that, just correct spelling in English, like a very solid thing that could bring together things. But well, it's a kind of a joke maybe, but that's one thing. The second thing is definitely how could we rely on consensus if there are 20 members, for example. Yeah, there will never be any consensus. Maybe the model that is within the Security Council of United Nations can be looked as can be looked upon as a model for this, so that the 5 members, the founding members, could have a veto power. Other members could just have their voice, and if there is no veto power from the 5 members, then the decision is taken by the majority. But I think it's a matter to be discussed, and I don't have a clear answer to that. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's perfectly fine, Professor Boris. This was a very difficult question. I must admit, I don't have the full answer as well. I agree that if we do start to put other countries, it will be a difficult problem, even the name of BRICS. Because if we add Argentina, we add the name BRICS. And then we add South Africa, SAA BRICS.
Associate members.
Yes, maybe.
Associate membership.
And I don't think it will be a fast expansion, like tomorrow we will have 20 members. Maybe next year we'll have 6, and then 3 years from then 7, and people will.
But life is
long. And with that, my friend Sandeep, I don't know if I should start the thank notes, and I really thank very much for the answer from Professor Boris. And I don't know if our colleague from India will still join us, or if we should ask another final question from the audience, and then ending.
Hello. I have one question, and my question is like you talked all these scenarios now, and the enlargement of the membership. Then how India will balance US in this bloc, and if Argentina and Iran will join, what will be benefit for the Russia, and what will be the reaction of the Russia on this? Thank you.
I think that Russia's stance towards Iran and Argentina is very favorable. I'm not sure how India would balance US, as was the first part of your question, because I think that India is balancing its foreign policy just not to alienate any other third party. But as for Iran, I think that I was speaking about the crisis and new opening opportunities, but I omitted one example, very clear example, that the North-South transport corridor, which is of great importance for India, I think. The talks of it had been going on for 20 plus years, but the first testing shipment was made just a couple of weeks ago. And it includes Iran, it includes India, Iran, and Russia, and maybe Azerbaijan. And it shows that it is kind of maybe not a multilateral, but a trilateral, quadrilateral project within the BRICS, if Iran ever joins BRICS. So I think that there are no objections to Iran joining BRICS. As for Argentina, I'm not an expert in Latin American studies. I'm not, but as much as I know, the relationship between Russia and Argentina are quite on a good basis.
I think that Argentina will have a lot of support from Brazil to join BRICS, because as we say, we are brother countries. Hermanos, so brothers. I think that will be a very Brazil and Argentina are very close partners for everything, for absolutely everything. We are rivals only on football.
Yeah, thank you so much. Actually, my first question was for the panel, but the panel other member is not available, so maybe other can if response on this. Other Indian, my colleague, anyone?
Question, kindly, dear Mr. Simon, kindly ask a question.
Yeah, my question was how India will balance US and this bloc?
India, can you repeat?
How India will balance this bloc, means BRICS, and relation with US?
Okay. Can I respond this question?
Yes, sure.
With the permission of Dr. Amna and Professor Kashu.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very interesting. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
See, dear friend, Mr. Simon, we know that India has been enjoying the doctrine of decisional autonomy, which we call as a strategic autonomy. Very fascinating, India has maintained this doctrine of strategic autonomy especially last 2-3 years. We have seen the COVID times when the Russia under the pressure between the China and India. We have seen the images when our defense minister was in Moscow along with the China, and Russia has tried to iron out the differences with the China and Russia during the time of high tension and the tension of the border issue last, I think, 2020. So the way India has managed to its nuanced dynamics of bilateral relations. So lots of examples we have. For example, Katsa. Despite the Katsa, India has very good relation with Iran. Right, India has a final deal with S-400 defense deal with Russia, despite the Katsa. So India has sidelined all the U.S. concern by emphasizing that it's our decision to align where. This is somewhat independent foreign policy which India is enjoying. So I don't think so any issue. And let me quote Jaishankar recently when he was interviewed, and that so we are multi-aligned. We are not non-aligned. We are not one single. We are multi-aligned with the multiple power of center. So in real terms, this is not the phase for Indian foreign policy as balancing. We are not in a position to balancing the boat. We are here to demonstrate our soft power, our hard power, and to maintaining both sides. You know, the lots of pressure on the Russian-Ukraine war, but India did not change its stand. We abstained so many times. This is independent foreign policy, and that is why on the BRICS, when India's position in a Quad, India took a very different line from Australia, Japan, and US on the Russia-Ukraine war, and on the BRICS, India is not, India's tone is not similar to the Chinese tone on the US. So what important for us? We are the 5th largest economy, right? We are the most populous, second most populous, country of the world. So India has emerged. India is not a balancing mode. India is asserting its position, and that is why we believe the trust of relationship and the reliability, and the Russia is on that verge. That we have compatibility of interest, we have a mutual trust, we have a very, very historical trust of building between India and Russia. And that is why US, even Biden responded this question, we understand the kind of relation, India's relation with the Russia. It didn't evolve with the 1 decades. It has been involved with the last 75 years and before that. So the foundation of long friendship with the Russia and the Brazil and other BRICS countries were very, very susceptible, very, very tactical with the Chinese this time. However, India has maintained and will maintain its independent position. Mr. Simon.
Thank you so much for the very beautiful answer. Thank you.
So any question from the audience side? I will request from the Brazilian youth, please ask any question, because this topic is very important, BRICS, and we have very distinguished skills from Russia.
I see a question.
From BRICS side, any question?
If any of my students, I'll speak in Portuguese ali, Nero. Se algum aluno quiser fazer uma pergunta, podem me fazer, que eu traduzo para o inglês aqui, depois traduzo as respostas se precisar no texto. Alguém tem uma dúvida sobre os BRICS? África do Sul, Brasil, Rússia, Índia, China, mandem a pergunta que eu traduzo. Ok, Arão, pode mandar a pergunta em português que eu traduzo.
Beleza. Existe alguma possibilidade do BRICS evoluir para uma possível coalizão militar?
Ok, eu já traduzo e faço essa pergunta, beleza, Arão? The dear friend, my dear student Arão from Brazil, from Faculdade de Pinhais, he has asked for the dear panelists if you believe that BRICS may expand into becoming a military alliance, such as NATO.
I may give a short answer, no. There are no signs that it will become such an alliance in the nearest future, and I don't think I have never heard any intention on any of the parts of participants, from any of participants of the BRICS, that there are such intentions. I don't think so. I firmly believe it's not going to be a military alliance, at least with within this my lifespan, within the nearest few decades.
Okay, I will translate to Portuguese in very short phrase. O professor acredita que nunca aconteceria isso. Ele acredita que não há nenhum sinal no momento que isso poderia acontecer, nenhum sinal enviado pelas partes. E também ele acredita que não no período de vida nosso e do professor, que ele acredita que isso aconteceria. Ele não vê essa possibilidade se desenvolvendo no futuro. With that, I have just translated to Portuguese. I also agree with the professor. I don't see a military alliance such as NATO, especially because this is not the BRICS purpose now. This is not the global order that BRICS is trying to build. We are trying to build something with consensus, and of course, if any BRICS countries were to be attacked from outside countries, we will not support it militarily, but we would eventually add the diplomatic pressure to try to protect ourselves as BRICS members. We will not military act, but we would support our BRICS friends, I believe.
So, Professor Casio, let it conclude the session, because unfortunately he is not joining due to some reason. So please conclude.
So, thank you very much, my friend Sandeep. Closing an event is a very sad moment because we always keep on debating. And I think that a very good way to thank the dear participants is to say that we wanted to keep on talking, because this was a very fruitful moment. This was a very happy moment for debate and for learning. And with that, I say that BRICS, we are always trying to bring ourselves closer. And FGS has this very, very clear purpose. We have now people from Brazil, from Poland, from Russia, from India. And this is a different perspective of a global order. This is a very positive way to learn from each other. As we always say, we cannot say that we are aligned. We are self-aligned. We look to ourselves and to see what is best for India, what is best for Brazil, what is best for Russia, what is best for BRICS countries. We are not looking to foreign countries from outside of BRICS. We are looking to ourselves, what is best for our countries. And I do really believe that this is not just about governments bringing ourselves together, but about people to people exchange. And we at FGS, we really do believe in people to people exchange and in close proximity between people from different BRICS countries and different countries after all. And with that, I really thank every participant for today's session. And I conclude, my dear friend Sandeep, saying Dhanyavad, saying Spasiba, saying muito obrigado.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor Boris.